In the case of the WWE Survivor Series War Games main event match, the defense calls the Wrestling Old Head. Wrestling Old Head, what is your opening statement?
That does not make sense. It does not make sense.
What's up, you guys? I am the Wrestling Old Head. You have entered the portal of pro wrestling, and this is my defense of why I feel the WWE Survivor Series War Games match does not make sense. We're going to get right into it, right into the thick of things. It seemingly, this past Friday on SmackDown is a big indicator, and looks like on Monday's WWE Raw, which would probably be coming on within a few hours of this video being released, is essentially all leading towards Seth Rollins and the OG Bloodline teaming up to wrestle Bronson Reed and the Rogue Bloodline in War Games at the Survivor Series. And I'm here to tell you why I just don't feel personally that this is something that makes sense. The War Games idea is the culmination of two groups that really hate each other, that want to solve this problem, and the only way they can solve this problem is by adding another ring, turning it about 45-degree angles or whatever, and then adding two cages with the roof on top to solve this problem. It has only been brought out specifically to solve the issues of two rival gangs. And now we are led to believe, with the way that this Survivor Series is building, is that it's going to combine two blood feuds essentially and put them in the cage. And I'm fine with that. Look, honestly, to be 100 with you guys, I don't have a leg in this race here. I'm fine with the way that they're doing this. But as far as story, as far as building things up, as far as coming up with a logical end, this Bloodline Civil War just does not need Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed. Now, if they're trying to extend this Bloodline series, this Bloodline saga, and they're adding Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed because they don't want to go with the traditional 4-on-4, because they feel like they can get more out of the Bloodline versus Bloodline Civil War storyline, that's fine. But I'm looking around at the roster, and those available, there's wrestlers that are available that make more sense to me. And that's just me. I mean, you have Nia Jax right there. You have Nia Jax available, and you could have brought back Tamina. I mean, you could have done, had a woman involved. I don't know. I mean, that's just something crazy. I know that, but the real one is the video that I've been putting out for the past, 3 months or so, where Cody Rhodes and The Rock make sense. That is the one where clear across the board you see why this is, where this is going, and why this is building to this angle, and having The Rock align with the Rogue Bloodline and Cody Rhodes continuously align with Roman Reigns against his preconceived notions of Roman still being Roman. There is so much story to that, and that is where I feel like it should have been going. Even involving Kevin Owens. If you don't want to involve The Rock in War Games, use Kevin Owens instead. That makes so much more sense. But really, the underlining thing here is that I personally believe, and competitively, Triple H, Paul Levesque, has come from the Vince McMahon era. And in Vince McMahon's era of the WWE, when Vince was against the wall, he pulled the trigger on the things that he felt that the fans needed. When Paul Levesque took the reins, he gave us everything that we felt, that he felt, and that we ourselves had been pleading for. He gave it to us. He gave us new superstars. He built up these superstars that came from NXT and gave us a reason to care about them and put them on the tops of the cards. He brought back all the guys that we felt that Vince couldn't use right and didn't do right. He gave us the storylines. He gave us long-term booking. He gave us a reason to care again and get invested. And it was at a battle that he had with AEW. Now, it was a really small battle with AEW. I mean, this wasn't AEW really competing for the #1 spot. It was really AEW competing for the #2 spot, but they were trying to catch the coattails of the WWE at that point, who had lost so much momentum. Now, the WWE has essentially caught up. They have brushed their shoulders of the AEW, and the AEW has lost momentum, and the AEW is trying to work back up. And so my point is that I feel because Triple H does not see competition on the horizon, he does not feel that he needs to really unload all his artillery or all of his weapons, then he can kind of like play around and see what works and make some decisions that he might not have made normally. This is my thought process into why they decided to include Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins. It's legitimately because he can toy around and figure some things out, keep us guessing, make us think that he's going right and going left. The Kansas City Shuffle. Maybe that is what we're seeing with Paul Levesque going with Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins. You're going to hear a lot of people that are going to make excuses about why they feel that this is the right way to go. And I just feel, as somebody that is a big fan of the Bloodline story, that the story did not even hint at including Bronson Reed or Seth Rollins in it. Solo Sikoa, I can see him going to get Bronson Reed. I will grant you that. I will grant you that Bronson Reed coming on and joining the Rogue Bloodline, I can see it making sense because Solo wasn't grabbing like blood family members. I mean, Tama Tonga and Tongaloa are, and by extension, just members of the family that were granted because of Haku's affiliation or Ming's affiliation, right? So technically, they're not like blood family members. So Solo going and grabbing Bronson Reed is not out of the ordinary. He would do whatever it takes to keep himself at the throne. But Roman Reigns grabbing Seth Rollins after this year, hitting him in the back with a steel chair at the cost of his world championship so that Cody can finish the story. Look, I'm all about the way that they're going to tie this in together. And if they do find a way to tie this in together to where it makes sense with about 2 more Raws left, I believe it's 2 more Raws left going into the PLE. Hey, fine, we can roll with it. But I just really, they would have a better time trying to get me to buy into Paul Heyman showing up with Brock Lesnar. And Brock Lesnar going into the cage while Bronson Reed stares across going like, this is going to be my biggest battle. It really makes more sense to have Brock Lesnar involved than Seth Rollins. I'd say Seth Rollins getting hurt and being stretchered out because Bronson Reed crossed the line, and then having Paul Heyman coming back and bringing in Brock Lesnar makes more sense story-wise. To beat Big Bronson Reed, they had to go and get the Beast. And maybe that's why they couldn't get a hold of Paul Heyman, because he didn't have service at Suplex City. I mean, literally, I'm just trying to find a way to understand why people are so avidly like championing this idea that this is a part of the story and this works.
I don't know.
It's cool. I have no problem with it in the sense that, yes, it's like Survivor Series, where, a traditional Survivor Series match was a team of guys that got together and they battled in elimination style. But this isn't a traditional Survivor Series match. This is War Games. And I hold War Games special to my heart, man. It's just really special to my heart. It's the finality. It is the culmination of a gang of 2 gangs that are going to try to kill each other, and the only way that they can solve this is by submission or knockout in a cage. 2 cages, 2 rings, War Games, baby. That's it. And adding Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins, in my opinion, takes away from the goal of the civil war of the Bloodline against the Bloodline. That's it. This is about family. Remember, Jey Uso was just saying this 2 weeks ago. This is about family. Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed are not family. And you can't tell me that they are. And you can't tell me it makes sense that they went to go grab these guys. The 5th man, look, the 5th man should be family. Solo should have grabbed The Rock. The only reason why you can say Cody Rhodes is family is because of his involvement with this. He's not technically family, but neither is Sami Zayn. And the bridge should have been Cody Rhodes convincing Sami Zayn and Jey Uso that they need to get back with Jimmy Uso and Roman Reigns so that they can solve this problem with Solo and the Rogue Bloodline. Solving that problem, then they can wash away with Jimmy and Roman. And then the whole time you could see them not really getting along and having these little quirks and things. And then finally, after War Games, they shake hands and hug it out, man. And then that's it. That's where it should have gone. In my opinion, that is an interesting story. It's a very predictable story. And I'm sure the internet wrestling community, I'm sure Twitter, Reddit, like I said, I have a cursory knowledge of what goes on those channels, but I'm sure that they were ablaze talking about how that is where the story should have gone. And Paul Levesque was like, yeah, you guys think I'm going here, so I'm going to go here instead. And I get that, and that's fine and everything, but I can't sit here and wrap my head around people saying like, oh, yeah, that's cool, that makes sense. Yeah, I buy that. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. Like, it's exciting. Yeah, it is. It's exciting, but it does not make sense. It doesn't make sense for War Games. Just like having all of these women just kind of like show up and team with each other, and then now we're supposed to see them in War Games. Like, instead of Rhea Ripley, they really should have Bayley just show up for ultimate confusion because of her and Io Sky. It's really Survivor Series. That should be a traditional Survivor Series match. They should go the traditional Survivor Series match with the women, 5-on-5 women. They should do War Games, but they should have, and instead of War Games now, they might as well go traditional Survivor Series with the OG Bloodline against the Rogue Bloodline as well. Adding Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, it makes more sense to go traditional Survivor Series elimination and have Bronson Reed go wild. But putting it all in a cage, it's like I'll grant you the idea that they think that Bronson and Seth Rollins cannot handle things in the ring, but there was a traditional wrestling match that happened at Crown Jewel, and Seth Rollins came out on top. Bronson Reed got back up. He was bleeding, but he got back up and he said, that's all you got. But the idea was that they finished in a regular match. This wasn't a match that was like Kevin Owens and Randy Orton couldn't finish their match because of what they were doing. I mean, that right there is showing you that, like, if they would have done that with Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed, then I totally could see why they're like, we've got to cup these two programs together because it's chaos. So we need these two programs in a cage because it's chaos. Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins has not been as chaotic as Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman, or as Kevin Owens and Randy Orton, just by general knowledge. It hasn't. So we're sitting here and we're supposed to believe that this is going to make sense, and I just don't see it. I am excited about one thing though. I am excited about Jacob Fatu getting jealous of Bronson Reed, and they really should play with that. Now that is exciting. The idea of Jacob Fatu being obsessively aligned with Solo Sikoa. I love you, Solo. I love you, my tribal chief. And Bronson Reed doing the most and getting the ire of Jacob Fatu because Solo is liking the way that Bronson Reed handles business. You know, you could be my second man in charge. You could be my enforcer. And Jacob's like, what? What are you talking about? He's going to be your man in charge? I love you. That I can see being really good television there. And then having a face-off between Jacob Fatu and Bronson Reed. Now, see, that's where I like that going. That's good. And look, at the key, at the heart of it all, I'm happy for Bronson Reed. Bronson Reed, I've been a fan of him since New Japan, since Jonah, the way that he's been doing things that he's been doing on the independent circuit when he was let go from NXT and then he came back to the WWE. They weren't sure what to do with him, and his rise to the top has been meteoric. I am a super fan of Bronson Reed. I love his character. I love that old school swagger of that big man that's going to hit you with that tsunami. The way that his video packages look, the way that his entrance is on the Titantron, the way that looks, if that's even what it's called anymore. I love everything about Bronson Reed. I like the program he has with Seth Rollins, and this is going to establish Bronson Reed past the upper card, probably in the main event status after this match. So I'm super happy with Bronson Reed for all of his accomplishments and for his meteoric rise. This has nothing to do about the talents. This is about the story. And just like I hold AEW's feet to the fire on a lot of things about not making sense and not having continuity, that's the only thing that I'm going to be talking about with the Bloodline versus Bloodline story. This is a civil war. In the Civil War, you need to get someone that's familiar. And I know that Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins have some familiarity, but everything that Seth Rollins said to Sami Zayn on Raw, it's true. You're out of your mind if you think I'm ever going to team with Roman Reigns again. Ever. And it shouldn't be because some art nemesis like Bronson Reed is on the other side, so you're gonna swallow your pride and team with Roman Reigns after in 2 weeks. Like, it to me, it's Brock Lesnar, Cody Rhodes, Braun Strowman. I mean, all of those make more sense to me. Braun Strowman assuredly makes more sense to me because he does have history with Roman Reigns. And if you are going to beat Bronson Reed, you're not going to get an elusive cat like Seth Rollins. You're going to get a grizzly like Braun Strowman or Brock Lesnar. So it makes more sense to me if you add Braun Strowman or Brock Lesnar with Seth Rollins. They need to continue this spite, this hatred, this vitriol. Like Roman and Seth, man, they should not be teaming this soon after what happened at WrestleMania. Roman would have rather lost his championship than to not get his revenge on Seth Rollins. Their story is they're forever enemies. They're never going to get along. And to wrap that in a little bow and say, well, just for tonight, if only for tonight. Nah, I don't see it, man. I just don't see it. But that's what I think. That's just my opinion. Like I said, very excited for War Games. I'm going to watch it. I'm not going to hate watch it or anything like that. But I just thought that I would speak about why I feel, and you guys saw this video. If you watched Who's Going to Be the Fifth Man, the video that I'm probably going to be able, if I remember to edit that video, I give you the link up here. Then you already know how I feel, or how I was going to feel if it wasn't going to be The Rock or Kevin Owens, and across from that, Cody Rhodes. And I'm just giving you this video to let you know that's exactly how I feel. And now maybe if I have the time, I'm going to show you a little clip of me playing WWE 2K24 or whatever, where I do the War Games that I wanted, because that's what I wanted. And that made more sense. And that's the only reason why I'm saying that. It made more sense. This is War Games. War Games, traditionally, these new guys, these new youngsters that are watching wrestling, they don't understand that some of these old heads, like myself, we watched War Games because it was like, this is the only way that this is going to end. The Four Horsemen against whoever was opposing the Four Horsemen. The NWO against whoever was opposing the NWO. That was why we had War Games. It was because this is not working. We have spent, I don't know, 9 or 10 months of WCW television programming building to this moment where it needs to be solved. And sometimes, most often than not, it wasn't solved. So Bronson Reed is going to run Seth Rollins through the cage. He's going to do a tsunami off the top. All of that's going to be great television, but does it make sense? Other than the fact that it's going to piss Jacob Fatu off and he's going to be defensive of his position within the Rogue bloodline, I don't think it makes sense. And that's just my opinion. But what do you guys think? You guys let me know what you think. Am I crazy for thinking that this 5-on-5 War Games match does not have the proper build that it should, that it's not threading these two different storylines together in an appropriate way to where it makes sense? Or am I just crazy, man? You guys let me know in the comments. Thumbs up on the way out. I love to hear contrarian opinions. I love to hear what your thoughts are. And in the meantime, in between time, stay tuned for more.